Don't stop, go get it, get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of James's Corner. I'm your host, James Richardson, and today I have a good friend of mine. I'm very excited about this interview. My good friend is with us, Marcus LaVoi. He is an actor, a writer, man of faith, ex-military, and I'm excited to interview him and talk a little bit about his life today and kind of where he started and where he's at now. So thank you for joining us today, Marcus.
So good to be here. Great seeing you again, my brother.
Yeah, you as well, man. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate your time. So let's jump right into it, and let's start from the beginning. Just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us kind of who you are, where you're from, and we'll go from there.
My name is Marcus LaVoi. I am from White Earth Reservation in Minnesota, Native American, mixed breed. My mother was French and Indian. My dad's pure blood. Let me see here. I went to school at a young age in Minnesota and then moved out to California when my parents divorced and been out in California pretty much ever since. Joined the military, the Marine Corps. Got out of the Marine Corps, went into went into the Department of Corrections, and then San Diego County Sheriff's Department for a while. While in the Sheriff's Department, I had a very good lieutenant friend of mine who asked me, he says, well, I wanted to pursue acting. And we're down in San Diego, and he said, listen, they're not going to come knocking on the door down here. You got to go to the hub. You got to go to where it's at. Now, this was 25 years ago where acting was in LA. You had to be in LA to be an actor because the auditions and whatnot and the availability, to where now so many things are done via computers and mail-in submissions and such and whatnot. You don't have to be there now, but this is back in the day. So I basically took a leap of faith and resigned, moved up to California, to Los Angeles, and I've been here ever since. 26 years now pursuing acting.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. So there was a lot there. I want to start from the beginning. You said that you are from Minnesota, right?
That's correct.
And you were raised on an Indian reservation?
Yep, White Earth Reservation is where I was originally from.
Let's start there, Marcus. Can you just tell us a little bit about like how that was, being raised on an Indian reservation and your experience with all that?
You know, I really must digress because I was so young when we left. Like I said, my parents divorced, and I don't recall. I have vague memories, and it's kind of haunted me to this day because as I've grown older now, obviously, I'm very interested in my culture and my heritage, and I don't know much. So I'm having to kind of go back now and learn and kind of put together pieces and understand.
Yeah.
And then I'm also learning, being from mixed background, like I'm not a pureblood, and there's difficulties there too. So it's kind of like this whole persona, especially in the industry, is like, if you're not a pureblood, you're not native. And I was like, well, that doesn't work for me because I'm proud of my heritage and I'm proud of my blood.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, now as I'm growing older, I'm trying to piece together my history and where I'm from. So I'm, doing a lot of research and asking questions and whatnot. And I have been fortunate enough in my career to play a variety of roles representing my Native American heritage. And that feels fantastic to me. And I'm proud of my people. I love my people. And I feel like in the industry today, it's one of the last groups of individuals, races, whatever you want to say, that still hasn't really surfaced and made a real big name for ourselves. We're kind of bit parts here and there, and that's changing, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
Amazing. And why do you think that that heritage has not been portrayed to the masses and people have been able to see it? Why do you think that they kind of maybe diminish it a little bit, if I'm using the right word, or kind of put it on the back burner? Why do you think that is?
I mean, let's go back to the old Westerns, and a lot of those actors were white men that they painted their skin dark,
right,
and put wigs on them and had them portray. I just don't think there was maybe necessarily the interest from Native American peoples to pursue this career. And I think now there's an awareness to it, and you're seeing a lot of change now. And you're also seeing a lot of writers in Hollywood who are interested in this, and they're starting to write more scripts based on Indian heritage. They're intertwining a variety of things now, and you see a lot of movies now where it's kind of like, it used to be this token actor. Now we're not the token actor anymore. Now we're being, we're actually lead roles in it. I'm happy to say I was on a series on Netflix called Chambers, where it was their very first original project they did. And myself and the girl who played my niece were the first Native Americans to ever play lead roles on a Netflix series. So that was
Wow.
really cool to be a part of that history. And I was really honored about that.
That's
So
amazing.
I guess in conclusion, to answer your question, I think there's more awareness now.
Yeah, I
And so
see.
we're starting, yeah.
Got you. And it grew a little bit, obviously.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
so we went from that, and then you said you went into the Marine Corps. How old were you
Yep.
when you joined the Marines?
19, 20. Yeah, I was a baby. 19, yeah, 20.
And what made that happen? Why did you decide to do that?
Just trying to make a name for myself
Yeah,
and get a good job and get out of, lower income, and
right.
find, yeah, a
Got you.
good job. And it was it was a difficult journey. So I'll just leave it there. Yeah, it was it was a
Can you talk a little bit about the journey of the Marine Corps, or maybe some of the
um
things that have happened?
yeah, I did a couple tours in the Middle East, and it wasn't a great experience. It's not like the movies where people are high-fiving each other and it's
Of course.
cool. It's brutal, and it's I don't war is horrible any way you look at it. And I just, for future generations to come, and my son is in the Marines now, I hope he never has to see combat. And as corny as it sounds, I just wish this world could find some peace, because boys running around in the wilderness
Yeah.
killing each other is never ever an answer
Yeah.
for a solution for forward progress. So
Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with I don't think it's corny. I think you're right on the spot there. I think that's it's tough to watch that, and I don't know why that has to be something that young guys have to go and do. It's very
yeah,
difficult to
it just doesn't make sense. Like let the old politicians get in a ring and box it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
why are these young
Yeah.
boys being sent? And it's not just box. It's to end people's life. And I always say
Yeah.
you can never unpull a trigger. Once you pull a trigger, it's for good.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you for your service. Obviously, you know that I really appreciate that. And you've told me some stuff off camera. We don't have to talk about it, but I understand that what you've been through, and it's a sad, tragic story, I feel like. And a lot of people have that story, and it's getting worse rather than getting better, I feel like.
It feels like it's getting worse, doesn't it? It's just, I know
Absolutely.
every generation, I'm sure World War II, people were saying this is the worst ever. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Jewish Holocaust, they were saying this is the worst ever. So
Yeah.
many people's time periods, going back to biblical days,
Yes.
the Israelites, I'm sure they were thinking these are the worst of times. So we've all seen
Yeah.
difficult times. Races have been enslaved. We've seen that here and there. It's just but this is our time, and I feel it's our duty to stand for what's right and be good leaders and make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Okay, so after the Marine Corps, Sheriff's Department, am I
Yeah, it was a
timeline right?
Yeah, Department of Corrections, where I worked at some prisons. I was at Folsom. Oh God, what was it? Mule Creek up in Sacramento, and then I was down to Richard J. Donovan in San Diego. These are all correctional facilities. And then lateraled into the Sheriff's Department for a brief stint and worked, did some patrol work. And like I said, it was. I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah, please.
I used to. I was a workaholic back in those days, and I had so much sick time on the books and HDOs, holidays, pay everything leave. So I got an agent up in LA, because that transpired from me doing a little background work one day. Law enforcement, they said, "Oh, you can do security work on these movie sets and make double time." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds great." So I started there, and then one day I'm just kind of standing there doing some security work, and they said, "Hey, you want to be in the scene?" And I was like, "Who, me?" And I'm telling you, man, I got the bug right there. I
Wow.
loved it. So I got an agent up in LA. Like I said, I had acquired all this sick time, and I started. I get an audition up in LA, and this is back when we had Thomas guides. They were these big map books that had like D7, and we didn't have GPS back then. So I would get an audition, I'd call in sick that night, drive my little pickup truck all the way up to LA, and I'd find like G7, the little spot on the map, and I'd sleep in my pickup truck, get up in the morning, clean up in a Shell gas station, and go do this audition, and then drive back home. I did that for 3 years.
Wow.
On and off, hundreds of auditions. And finally, I started booking roles.
Wow.
And that's when this lieutenant friend of mine looked at me one day, and he believed in me, and he said, "They're not going to come down here and look for you. You got to go. You got to go." So I, leap of faith, resigned and moved up here to LA.
Wow.
Best move I ever made.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Can you share maybe a story of how what it was being a corrections officer and maybe being a sheriff? Like, can you share anything about that? Like anything crazy that happened that would be interesting for people to
It's
hear?
been over 20 years. I mean, I got so many stories. Let me think here. I just one thing I will say about law enforcement is the few bad apples that have really shined a negative light on the community and service work of law enforcement is a shame, because of course there's going to be bad apples who use excessive force and abuse the color of authority of their position. You know, these are probably guys who are beat up in high school and now they got a badge on their chest,
Sure.
and they want to go around and act like a superhero, and they're not. But the majority of these law enforcement officers out there who believe in their job and are trying to make a difference, and it is a tough job. It is a difficult job. What I like to tell that people don't always understand, a couple points are, you're never dealing with something positive. This is an environment where you're being called into something negative, negative, negative all throughout your shift. And it is so difficult for the human brain to process that and then come home to your wife and kids and hey, and everything's great.
Yeah.
It is. My wife told me that life back then with me was like a roller coaster.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's just up and down, and you never really know, and your emotions are all over the place. It is a difficult job. And then you look at these video cams, and again, I'm not justifying poor behavior by any means, but what I am saying is you will sometimes see somebody whip out a phone and see the last images of this officer who's chased this guy who's endangered 20 people. He's ran over curbs. He's knocked over old ladies. He's, pushed a kid down, he pulled a gun on somebody, and he's ran, and our adrenaline's going, and we finally apprehend the guy. And yeah, we're men and dealing with another man, and adrenaline's high, and sometimes things get aggressive. And then people see that only the tail end of it and say, look at this abuse. Well, it's a tough job. It's a physical job. And sometimes it gets ugly.
Oh, I could imagine.
Again, I said, I'm not advocating
absolutely
police brutality, because some of it is horrible, and these officers need to not only lose their badges, they need to do time like any other criminal.
Exactly.
But the majority of the job, there's good officers out there who believe in their community and really signed up to make a difference. Like, I told my mom when she was still alive, I said, what do you want to do that for? I said, I want to make a difference. I want to help people. I want to save some lives. I want to do the right thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I agree with you 100%. And you said one thing that is very interesting. You said that it's very difficult, obviously, for the mind to process these things when you're in these high, intense times and environments where your adrenaline is pumping and you're having to make fight or flight decisions very quickly. How do you deal with something like that? Like, I know you said you got to come home and then you got to see your family and be a father and be a husband. How do you deal with all that pressure? Like, what is something that you relied on, or some processes that you use to get through these times?
Well, and that's a fantastic question. I think that's the question that we all as law enforcement search for. And I mean, unfortunately, I probably started drinking a little too heavily in those days. I was never violent with my family, but I was dismissive. I was never a guy who raised my hand, but I'd like, I would just walk away and be gone for 2 days. I'm like, where the hell were you? And I would just dismiss, or I'd shut down. I would internalize, and until I would just explode over something, over something stupid. You come home like, why isn't the trash taken out, and throw the trash can across the room? Like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't have that answer, and I think that's the answer that all law enforcement is searching for, is what do you do with that? Where do you process that?
Yeah.
And I wish, today, the things that I knew, we always say that in life, don't we? I wish the things today I knew I could apply back then, because I'm going to tell you right now, I am a man of faith. I am a believer, and I think with the assurance of knowing that you're not alone, that God is with you at all times, it is a strength that, man, if I could have had that back then, known that back then, I would have been much more able to deal with a lot of these stresses and these situations,
Absolutely. And that's I think that it's so interesting, everybody's journey with their faith and with God, and what he has to put us through in order for him to come grab us and help us and put us on our knees, so we look up to him in our darkest times. And you said that you were dealing with it maybe with some alcohol or things like that, like which everybody, I feel like that's just a normal, we're trying to subdue the pain and get out of our minds and get out of that painful place. And we have to go somewhere with it. Right.
Yeah.
And that was something that you did to be
Yeah,
able to get rid of the pain and subdue it.
I did. I'll honestly, I'll be very transparent here and just say,
please.
I remember a time in my journey where I would have I distinctly remembered it was this purple tumbler, like, you know, big gulp tumbler made of heavy plastic. And I liked Captain Morgan and Diet Coke back then. And I'd fill that thing full of ice, and it'd be half Captain Morgan and half Diet Dr. Pepper. And I would get in my little pickup truck that I used for ripping around town. I had that thing between my legs everywhere I went, drinking and driving as a law enforcement. And justifying that as I got this. I'm in control. I'm okay. I remember being pulled over one time in Oceanside by Highway Patrol, and I had that thing between my legs and didn't even care to move it. And he comes walking up, and just to tell you, like, this arrogance and this attitude, it was like he didn't even ask about that, but I didn't have a seatbelt on. I was like, "What are you pulling me over for?" Because my license plates are sealed, so they know who they're pulling over, right? So they knew I was on. And my attitude, and he flashed my badge. It's like, "What are you pulling me? Well, you don't have your seatbelt on." It's like, really, a seatbelt? You know, why don't you go do your job? And we're arguing between us.
Wow.
And that's the arrogance that I had. This I can do anything I want to do kind of mentality. And like I said, I wish I wish now, you know, then I knew what I knew now, because that is such a poor shadowing of what law enforcement should be and what they look like. And we all fall into it, you know.
Absolutely. Well, we're trying to get rid of the pain. We're trying to diminish the pain and try to understand what the hell's going on.
Right.
And can you talk a little bit about I'm sure that the journey of what you're speaking about in your faith connect at some point. And have you always been a man of faith, Marcus, or is this something that is gradually inclined as you've gone through life?
I mean, I grew up kind of, you know, being dragged to church, and I knew the name Jesus, and I knew what church looked like, and I knew all of the above. And here's a funny story. I had a grandmother, an old native grandmother, who used to read from the Bible every night when I'd go visit her. That was a bedtime story. She'd read from the Bible, and I'd be like, and she'd start crying, and I'd be like, here we go with the Bible and the crying. And fast forward 20, 30, whatever, how many years it's been. I'm in church with my wife at the time, and we're new to church, and I'm sitting there listening, and it's like I knew every story. And I was like, that was because she, as a little boy, taught me those things. And it stuck. And I just remember sitting there like, my gosh, I know this one. And then my wife reminded me as she leaned over at the 10 Commandments and said, "Do you realize you've broken every one of those?"
Thanks for letting me know.
But I want to segue into that right now. There was a great story. I was up here in Los Angeles, bouncing in nightclubs, pursuing acting during the day, and leaving, you know, working at night so I could leave the days open for auditioning, right? So I was super aggressive in those days. It's full of steroids, you know, ready to fight anybody in the club. And I did. I was brutal in those nightclubs. They would call me on the radio just to see me drag someone out of there. I loved it, you know. It was kind of like my identity, as sad as that sounds.
No, I
And I was engaged. Oh, my wife and I had divorced, and we were apart for maybe 2.5 years. And I was engaged to another woman, and we had wedding invitations sent out. I was ready to move on with my life. And one night, I'm gonna cry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Take your time, man. I'll sit here with you as long as you need.
So one night, my ex now calls me and says, "Hey, you want to come to church with the kids and I?" Like, mind you that my fiance is at work at another nightclub, cocktail waitress, whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to. Probably had a 6-pack of beer in me. Yeah, I don't want to go. She called back, you know, they really want you to go. So I go, brother, it's Christian church. And I'm sitting in the back with the kids and her, and the place goes dark, and they put this spotlight on this lady, and she starts singing the song to Jesus. Never, ever will I forget that sound. And she's praising, and I don't think I've ever heard praise music before.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting back there, and I'm like, what is happening? Now I realized it was the Spirit of God that was touching me. But
Yes.
then I didn't know what it was, and I never experienced that. And I'm publicly strong, right? And I start to cry in public, and I'm like, "What is happening?" And I'm not talking about like a little tear
No,
in the eye. I'm talking about
sobbing.
knots coming out, sobbing. I was
Yeah.
broken,
Yeah.
and I sat there, and then they finished that song, did a couple others, and I've never ever experienced anything like that. And they, if I can't remember, I think they ended it and then asked for altar call. And I was like, I'm going up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so not you, you know? And I went up there and received Jesus as my savior. And I drove home that night and I sat, lights are on. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And this fiance comes home and I sat her down and I said, I can't do this. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I don't have the tools in my toolbox to do this. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to embarrass you in front of your family. I'm going to break this. I break everything. And we parted as friends. I helped her find another place. And I started dating my ex-wife again and going to church. And that went on for another year, year and a half. And I'm happy to say we remarried.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
What an incredible story. And I really appreciate you sharing it with me because I love Jesus Christ too. And I have so many great stories. And it's so amazing when I hear how he comes into people's lives and just totally changes everything.
Yeah.
And he's done that with me too. So I can fully concur of what you're saying. And Mark, after that experience, because every Christian that I've talked to has had some sort of experience like this with Jesus Christ.
Sure.
And you can tell when someone has never had that. There's a certain light in them, and when they speak, you can tell they've been through a lot of pain and suffering, and that's who we worship, a suffering God, you know, and he understands our pain and he understands what we go through and what they did to him, you know, and we have to really always remember that. I always remember that the pain that, you know, when I'm going through something, like, you think this is bad, but like, just think about what they did to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it's very, very, it's tragic and so sad when I think about it. But after that experience that you just shared with me, did your life change after that? What changed for you after that?
Well, first of all, I learned something very interesting a while back in the church, and I studied and I confirmed it with other pastors to make sure that it was not just one person's perception, but some truth. And heard many times now that you can like call out or, you know, feel it's your time, but until God calls you is when things change.
Yes.
And I believe that is because he knows the time and the purpose that he can use you for his good to benefit the kingdom and bless others. Yeah. And I think up to that point, like I said, maybe I knew of him and did, you know, went to church and whatnot, but until some of those real hard lessons were presented to me and broke me.
Yes.
Then I could be rebuilt. That's why God, Jesus is an example. When he broke the bread, is he broke it to show the brokenness of man, and then that God could restore and bless others. Absolutely. And I associated those two together. Until you're used to bless others, that's when he'll call your name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And do you feel like he's always been kind of calling you your whole life? Or is this just like, I mean, maybe like, because I can relate to you on a lot of levels with your story. And in my younger days, I know, you know, I believe that there was God. I didn't grow up in a very, you know, religious household. There was just God, and that was about the end of the story. I had to go out and kind of figure out, research on my own what was going on.
Yeah, and you should. That's called relationship.
Exactly.
You can go to church, but until you pursue a relationship, you're spinning your wheels. Really, I mean,
exactly.
It's like you're just wearing a hat on Sunday at church.
Yeah, exactly.
Easter hat, you know, for the ladies. Like it needs to be. Like anything, if I never had conversation with my wife, or I never had intimacy, or I never asked her questions, or took the opportunity or the chance to know her, where would my relationship be? So it's the same thing with Jesus and God. It's a relationship. You need to talk. You need to have prayer time. You need to have quiet time. You need to ask for advice.
Yes.
This is relationship.
Every day too. I think it's very important that it's every day. Consistency is key. You know, I think that in anything, but especially with the relationship with God and Jesus Christ, I think that for me, and I'm sure that you can relate, the consistency in it is very important, because we can pray and pray and pray and pray. And a lot of people have this problem that I speak to, you know, oh, I pray, but nothing happens. Oh, I prayed and nothing happens. Oh, I prayed and nothing happens. but that's not the way it works. You know,
Yeah.
the consistency and
Yeah.
every single day on your knees asking and having a
And I
conversation.
think just a general attitude of, I think because this world that we live in is so goal oriented, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. I'm very goal oriented. I'm very driven. You know, I have dreams and I'm going to pursue those until he calls me home.
Sure.
But in the interim, I believe we get so caught up in the hustle and the race that we don't take time to just really be thankful. And I'm not talking about, like, thank you. Oh my God, I got a new car.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Materialistic things.
yeah, I've really lately been focusing on just thanking him just every day. Just like I'll go outside and just, I know, like, again, I'm not trying to sound so corny.
You don't sound corny. You don't.
I'm just getting in this mode where I'm just like, hey, I didn't book a huge role today. I didn't win the lottery,
Yeah.
but I'm healthy. My family's right.
Mm.
And thank you for this day, God. Thank
Gratitude,
you.
man.
Just thank
Gratitude.
you
Yeah.
from my heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And having that gratitude like daily, like he tells us to live in the present, right? And the enemy tries us to get us to live in the future. And I think that that's really a big problem what's going on with the culture today.
Big time.
Everybody's thinking about their career and what they're going to do in 5 years, and they got to get that car and they got to get that house. And then the next thing you know, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and their whole entire life they've looked back and they've been
Yeah.
in the future in their mind. They're just time traveling.
Very
And
good.
that's the work of the enemy. You know, he
Yes,
wants us
personal.
to be in the
Personal.
future all the time. He never
Yeah.
wants us to be in the present. That's something that I dealt with my whole life, and I'm working on that still. But just being able to be thankful, like have a roof, have food, have clothes, have a car, like have people that love you and you want to be
Yeah.
around you. Like
Yeah.
this is what's really important. Because
Yeah.
nobody at the end of their life is like, oh wow, I just, they want to be around people they love. They don't care about their car
Yeah.
and how much
And they
money
want to
they
make
have.
a difference. They want to say, for me, I want to say that my name mattered. That I used
Yeah.
to tell people when I was younger and not a good man, I would say, if I died today, probably 2, 3 people would come to my funeral. Today,
Wow.
I'd hope there'd be thousands, just
Yeah.
because of the investment that I put into others and the work that I've done into strengthening relationships. My wife always says, you want to be a good friend, or you want a good friend, be a good friend. You want
Exactly.
people in your life, be in other people's lives.
Yeah.
You want people to call you and check in, call and check on others. It's just
Exactly.
what we put out too.
It's a two-way street. And people also say if you want people to believe in God and Jesus, they have to see it in you first.
Yeah.
So it's very important that they see that in you first. And
Yeah.
then they can be like, wow, something's different here. Because, a lot of people, especially where we live in Los Angeles, I mean, it's just getting so wild here, and people are so self-centered and they're so godless, and they actually despise God and Jesus when you start to talk about him.
Well,
They think
yeah.
you're weird. They don't want
Yeah.
to talk to you. They don't want to be friends with you. It's very interesting how that that you're on the right track when these things start to happen, right?
Sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Jesus warned of that. He said, you
Oh
will be
yeah.
persecuted. It's not like,
Yeah,
well, they may not like you. He persecuted. And
yeah, exactly.
think of
It's
his
so
boys he
true.
hung out with. They hung them upside down on
Yeah.
crosses and
Yeah,
stoned them to
exactly.
death. And
Yeah.
we're doing okay.
Yeah, yeah, so far, so far. Yeah, they hate me and they're gonna hate you too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And well, thank you for that. I appreciate talking about that because I
Thank
enjoy
you.
speaking about that
Oh,
because
me too. I
I think
love
it's
it.
so important, and
It's my
we have to
strength.
give glory to him no matter what we do. Whether
Definitely.
people think it's weird and people think I don't really care.
Hey,
But
let's be weird.
yeah, let's be weird. Exactly. We know the truth and we have discernment, which is I'm very thankful for that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Talk a little bit about your first big role that you got as an actor, because a lot of people don't know who I'm talking to here. This guy that I'm talking to on the camera is a major actor. And talk about a little bit about Den of Thieves, because I know
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people know that movie.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about how like the experience of having your first big role, being around all these huge actors and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that was probably my big break role. I had done a lot of like CSIs, and I did a lot of like Hallmark, movies and things like that. A lot of soap opera work, and that's great work. I'm not knocking any of that. It was
Yeah, yeah.
great. It taught me the foundations of what acting is, and long hours on set, and dedication, and learning, studying dialogue, and getting into character. So a lot of great lessons learned, and it is a process. Don't let anybody mistake you thinking that acting is just, oh, I'm a outgoing person. I should be
Yeah.
an actor, or I'm good looking, or whatever people tell you that, my mom said I was going to be, whatever they say. Acting is a craft that requires a lifetime of dedication, and you're never great. You're always getting better and better and better. I mean, Pacino, De Niro, these guys are still go to theater and take classes. It's an evolution of work that you never master. So that inspires me too. I love the challenge of it.
Right.
Uh, so Den of Thieves was my first, like I said, real big film. And I worked on soaps with Eric Braeden, who was on Young and the Restless. He played Victor Newman on the show. And we were buddies. He's a man's man. I was a man's man. We were talking military, tough guy stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And he invited me to a couple of his Christmas parties where I met his son, Christian Gudegas, and he's the writer and director of Den of Thieves. So Christian and I became best buds, man. He is the greatest guy I've ever met in the industry. Just kind-hearted, down to earth, knowledgeable, amazingly talented writer. And one day my manager said, "You got an audition," and I went to audition and for this role, this heist movie, and I literally auditioned for it. And then about 3 days later, my manager called and said, "You got the role. I'm sending you the script." I get the script and I'm thumbing through it. And then it finally clicks, the name Christian Gudegas on there. He didn't even tell me. Excuse me. He didn't tell me. He didn't give me a brief warning. Hey, I'm going to have you audition. Nothing. He just sent me out for this. And to that point, I still didn't even know how big this movie was. I'm on a plane to Atlanta, Georgia, where we filmed it. And I get to set and I go to wardrobe and they're giving all the military gear and everything. And then I see all the picture board of who's in it. I see Gerard Butler, 50 Cent, like Pablo Schreiber, and I'm just like,
insane. You must have been.
This is a movie.
Yeah, right. That's insane.
Yeah. And so many cool things, but being out there in Atlanta filming that for about a month and a half, 2 months, we were all away from our families. And like I said, I'm a new, pretty inexperienced actor compared to these guys,
Yeah.
and we're all like hanging out and going to dinner together because we're away from our families. So it's just, we're sitting at like dinner table with Gerard Butler, just talking like normal guys and just hanging out and going to barbecues. Pablo Schreiber had a couple of barbecues on the weekends and we're barbecuing, watching football. Like it was just crazy to me. And the movie came out, great success. Part 2 is also coming out in this January. I'm not in it because I died. Spoiler.
You died in the first one, unfortunately.
But no, but there's good things to come. I'm in contact with Christian, and he's got other big things coming, and I will work with him again very soon. So
good.
Yeah,
I'm excited. You must have thought that wow, I made it. Like, this is it. I made it now, right? When you were at dinner with all these guys.
Oh my God, it was just surreal. I'm so I'm at dinner.
Yeah, I can't talk right now. I got 50 Cent next to me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, and can you talk a little bit about like some of the future projects you're working on, or is there anything that in the future that's coming up that's big for you?
It's always kind of scary to talk about it because anytime you do, sometimes things fall through. But like I said, I have a script that was sent to me by Christian about a future project coming up, so that's very promising. The writers and directors of this Netflix series that I was on contacted me, and we're in the process of talking about another series coming up, which would be amazing. And then I just finished a movie called Maxine that's in theaters right now. My first time I ever did a horror movie. Wow. And they butchered all my scenes. So it was like I was in about 20 minutes of the movie, and after when I went and saw it, I was in theater. So I'm in like 3 minutes of it.
Damn.
But the writer and director of that one, who I've worked with on other projects, he's got something in store too that we're working on. So
good.
It's in God's hands, like anything else. Nothing I can do. It's all in God's hands now, and I'm just gonna stay faithful and just believe my best days are yet to come.
Amen, man. Amen. And that I appreciate you sharing that with us, Marcus. What else do I have for you? So if there was some, people that are trying to be actors, because, people come to LA and Hollywood to try to fulfill their acting dreams. Like, most people here, that's what they're doing. When you meet people, they're trying to be actors and trying to be singers. And if you could tell them one thing, because obviously you've been on this journey for quite some time, and you haven't given up. Because I know that we've talked off camera and we've talked about, how easy it is to just give up and say, I'm not doing this shit anymore. And there's a lot of stuff that, that's part of life. And I think that's the deciding factor, like, are we going to give up or are we going to keep going? And for me, that's a decision almost every day I have to make.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And it's tough. Like I just want to say, fuck this, I'm done, and just pack it all up. And it's, it's something that obviously we've talked about, but you haven't given up, which, I look up to you for that. And I'm so glad that you haven't, because you're talented. You have a lot of skill, and we all know that. And can you tell like maybe like a young actor or somebody who's trying to fulfill their dreams in acting, like what you did when you wanted to give up and nobody was giving you roles and nobody
Yeah.
wanted to sign you and book you for things? Can you just talk a little bit about like your process of
Yeah.
how you got through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really boils down to, I guess at the core of it is what I want to share right now. At the core of it all is your belief in your calling. And I'm not saying your belief in your I'm talking about your calling, what you believe you are called to this earth for. And
Mm,
I've gone over it time and time and time again. Like I don't know how to work on computers. I can't fix houses, build
yeah.
houses. I'm not good with cars, but I can act my ass off. And that's what I believe God has put a gifting in me. And I believe it's my calling. And I will never give up on my calling until God calls me home. Now, having said that, we have to be smart about things. Like, don't move from Arkansas. No offense, Arkansas, but like anywhere from and to like come to LA to be a movie star and sell everything you own, and have a plan. Have something that you do to sustain income while you pursue this, because
Right.
that's the smart move. Don't get an apartment out here and sell everything you own and cash in your life savings. Just make wise decisions. Like I said earlier, you can audition from home now, wherever you're at in the United States, around the world. So get an agent and audition and pursue it, and never pay money to people to do things. They should be paying you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
don't go, oh, send us this much and we'll get you an audition. Don't
That's
buy into that.
important. Yeah, that's
Big time.
important.
And I would just say, surround yourself with people who believe in you. Now, like you said earlier, you and me can agree, and we've talked too. There's so many times we're like, I'm done. I can't do this one more day. It's
Yes.
not going to happen. And then my wife will always tell me, this is our dream. We've been doing this for 20 something years together. Don't take my dream away. So she believes so much in what we're doing that she says, if we got to live in a 1 bedroom apartment and eat beans and rice, then let's go for it. We're going to finish strong. We're going to finish our journey. And to have support like that, to have support like
Amazing.
that is, there's no turning back. So for me, I'm going to continue my passion. I'm going to continue pursuing my craft. I'm going to put work in it. I go to acting classes. I write. I do seminars. I talk to kids. Like I do things that keep me focused and keep the skills sharp. You can't just sit back and wait for an audition to come in. I have buddies of mine. I'll call them up. Hey, let's put a scene up. We'll meet up at each other's house and just cold read scenes. We run scenes. My coach will come over and we'll just put stuff on camera and experiment and grow. This is the craft. This is the work. Don't just sit back
Absolutely.
and wait for someone to knock on your door. You got to go after it. Be proactive. And just if you don't have thick skin, don't get in this business, because
Mm,
you are told no more than a traveling refrigerator salesman door to door. You're
yeah.
told no all the
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to believe in you, man. Because if you don't believe in you, no one's going to believe it. No one's
Yeah.
going to believe it. And it's not an
Absolutely.
arrogance; it's a confidence that
Sure.
comes out of you in a room, and you got to have it.
Absolutely. Amazing. Yeah, I think that's important because a lot of people are looking for these answers, man. And I know a lot of friends that are actors and trying to make it and they have no idea what they're doing and they feel like giving up, and maybe they shouldn't give up. They're talented. Maybe if they just kept working at it and just kept doing it, somebody will see your talent and somebody will believe in you eventually.
Yeah, I
Everybody
mean,
has
like
that.
find a job where you can, work and make an income and survive, and then pursue this, pursue your heart until it comes to pass. You know what I mean? Don't be foolish about it. Is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
work at Home Depot during the do something. Keeping those bills paid, and then in your spare time, work, and push and do this.
Yeah.
And what if I gave up? What if I said, hey, I'm done, and then tomorrow was the day that they were going to call? You know what I mean? Like, you just never know. There's this
Exactly.
cartoon where there's this, it's Seeing Underground, and it's just this guy, and he's hunt with a pick, and he's picking for gold, and he's this long shaft he's going to, and we see it from here, and it's like he's right, and here's this pot of gold, and
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
just
I've seen that.
rolls it down and turns the other way. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that always
Exactly.
sticks in my head. Like, what
Yeah.
if?
Yeah, it's so true. And I always
Yeah,
discuss this with some of my friends. I just say like, okay, so if we were to give up right now, what's the difference? What other position are we going to be in if we give up right now or keep going?
right,
We're going to
right,
be in the
yeah,
same position.
yeah.
So
So I'm gonna
whether you give up or keep going, you're going to be in the same position right now.
Exactly. And why not do something that you love? Like, there's
Exactly.
nothing more that I love than acting. Like, to be on set, to create, to like I said, to write, to put up a scene, to do live theater. Man, when you do live theater, you come out there and you're nervous and there's 500 people sitting out there, and you put this performance up, and you in your head as you're going, it's working and it's feeling right, and you see people are crying or sitting on the edge of their seat. That to me is like I'm giving a God-given gift that he put in me. I'm sharing that with others. And that's not an arrogance thing. That's me sharing my form of the gospel through me. And it doesn't matter what the work is. It's God has blessed me. I'm going to bless others. It's what it really all boils down to,
Absolutely. And sometimes following our dreams, some people look at it as like, oh, you're following your dreams and they think that you're successful because you're following your dreams. I always tell people this because I've always been that type of guy. Like where I grew up, I was always like, oh yeah, I'm going to go follow this. They're like, yeah, okay. Oh yeah, you're going to go do that. And then I went and did it. And to a certain extent, there's some things that I still want to do. And I always explain to them because they think like, oh, I live in Los Angeles now because where I come from, it's a bit different. And they're like, oh, you're in Los Angeles now. You're a big shot. And I just go, listen, you don't even understand what it takes to follow your dreams.
Yeah.
It's easy to go sit back and be scared to follow your dreams and go get a job and sit in the job and sit in an office for 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's looked at as like, we are big shots or we're different because we go out and follow our dreams. But the complications and the struggle that comes with that is not meant for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so difficult. And when you rely on yourself and your own place to go out and get your own paycheck and pay your own bills, and someone's not handing you a check, like you got to go out and try to find your way in this world. It's very difficult, and people don't want to help people. They want to keep it for themselves. So we deal with all these different things. And I always explain to people, like, if you want to go out and do something and you have something in you that you're passionate about and you have a purpose, the journey to that is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be full of heartbreak, sadness, pain, suffering. And, and then you go through all that stuff, and then maybe you might not even get, like, we don't know what can happen.
But, and let me expand on that too. And as it should be difficult.
Yes.
Because you would never appreciate it if the journey wasn't so difficult. It was like, I appreciate when I book something now and I'm on set and I'm just sitting there taking it in. I'm so thankful. I'm like, this is the direct result of years of letdown and failures and wins and losses, and culminated to this moment right here, right now. Like I'm on a set, and a lead role on a TV show. Like, wow,
incredible.
And I'm so grateful for that. And it's like, it should be hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So it should be hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people maybe think it's easy, like their perception of it looks easy. Like when they look at like a famous actor or somebody, they look at them and like, wow, must be nice. Must be nice to have that. Must be nice to do that. But they don't know that this guy's been sleeping on couches for 15 years.
Exactly.
Like they don't understand what it takes. Like, and I think that's important to discuss, because people don't, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people don't understand what it takes to go out and follow your dreams and follow your purpose and what God has put in your heart to do.
Yeah.
Because we could all just go work. Like we could all get a job and work 9 to 5. It's not like we can't do that.
Yeah, that's safe and that's great for some people. It's considered responsible. Go to college, get a job, that's great for some people. That's just not me. Yeah. And that's you gotta ask yourself, whoever you are, who and what am I? What is my calling? And pursue your calling. Because if I finish this journey right now, today, this is my last day, I will honestly stand before God and look back and say, the journey was amazing. Thank you for the journey. It was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to really remember that, because we sometimes forget. We get into the routine of life and forget the journey and forget how we got here and what he brought us through to get here, and the trials and tribulations that gave us the wisdom to be able to be ready for the opportunity. I think that's so important.
And the story's not over yet, brother.
No, we're just getting started, I think.
That's right. The story, I always say that my story is not over yet.
No, we're just getting started, man. We're not even halfway, I don't think.
That's right.
But well, yeah, Marcus, I really appreciate your time. If there's one thing you would like to leave the audience with, is there anything that you would like to leave them with, or where they can find you, or maybe some of your social?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Marcus LaVoi, at Marcus LaVoi. Yeah, you can find me there. Like I said, I'm not really the computer guy. Like, I'm pecking away at the thing, but reach out, say hello, whatever. And just as far as just your dreams, man, like don't live with regret. Don't ever sit back one day when you're old and gray and say, God, I wish I would have tried that. I wish I just try it. Just go for it. But don't do it half-assed. Like if you're gonna do it, fucking do it. Put
Yeah.
everything into it. Go for it, and make it your dream. And if it's your calling, don't ever, ever give up on your calling, because that's something God put in you. And you got to discern that. You got to know the difference between that. Like, whatever. I like football. I'm a big football guy. Go Raiders. But if I realize like I can never be a football player, right? It's
Yeah.
not my calling. I love to watch the game. I throw the ball around with the boys on the weekend or whatever, but I'm not a football player, but I am an actor, and that's my calling. And I'm going to go till the Lord calls me home.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you for that, Marcus. And thank you for being with me and doing this today. I know you're a busy guy, so appreciate you taking the time. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe on this video, and we might have Marcus on for a number 2 one of these days when he books another huge goal, and which is very soon. I can feel it.
Very soon.
Yeah. And thank you, man, for coming on. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, brother. Be blessed.
Awesome. You too.